The history of humanity is marked by constant changes on the political map. Many states that were once powerful and significant no longer exist today. They either merged into larger nations, collapsed due to wars and conflicts, or dissolved for other reasons. In this video, we will take a look at some of these forgotten states, examine the reasons for their disappearance, and consider the legacy they left behind. Today, we will look at powerful emirates in Greece, explore the origins of modern-day Russia, and even make a detour to Majorca, which was once its own kingdom. Let's begin in the year 824 in Greece. Crete had long been part of the Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire, but with the spread of Islam, control over the island became increasingly unstable. Again and again, caliphs from the Middle East launched raids on Crete, but no one had yet been able to establish lasting control. However, this was about to change drastically at the beginning of the 9th century. After a failed revolt in Al-Andalus Muslim Spain, tens of thousands of rebels were banished from the vast Muslim empire. This group, led by Abu Hafs, turned increasingly to piracy and began searching for a new homeland. They frequently raided the wealthy Crete, which was weakly defended by the Byzantines due to its strategic location. These occasional raids soon developed into a more permanent occupation. The pirates eventually brought their families from Spain and gradually conquered the entire island. Crete finally broke away from the Byzantine Empire, and Abu Hafs declared the independent Emirate of Crete. This was quite unique, as the island was completely independent from the Abbasid Muslim Empire, unlike other emirates. Abu Hafs established his own ruling dynasty and had grand ambitions. Thanks to Crete's strategically excellent location, the fertile regions of Greece and Anatolia were now open to him. We must not forget that he was still known as a pirate lord. Over the next few years, Crete became a pirate stronghold, often referred to as a pirate emirate. They quickly gained control over some of the most important trade routes, and the coastal regions of Byzantium were now constantly threatened. More and more people from other regions, especially from Syria and North Africa, joined the emirate, always in search of wealth and new plunder. As they expanded, more islands in the Aegean Sea and even some strongholds on the Greek mainland fell into the hands of the emirate. At one point, Athens was occupied, Thessaloniki was plundered, and even the capital, Constantinople, was threatened. But they had overreached. After decades of devastation along the coasts, the Byzantines launched a counterattack. With a massive fleet and army, they sailed to Crete and besieged the capital of the emirate for almost a year. The pirates had always focused on quick attacks and looting, but failed when it came to defending their own territory. Eventually, the capital fell, and piece by piece, all of Crete was retaken. The last emir of the island and his son were captured and taken to Constantinople. The Muslims on the island were either killed or enslaved. Thus, in the year 961, the more than 100-year history of the Emirate of Crete came to an end, and the Byzantines regained control of the island. But now, let's jump to much colder regions. In the 13th century, around Moscow, a history was unfolding that would have far-reaching effects on the world. Until then, almost the entire area we know today as Russia was part of the powerful Mongol Empire. However, within the Mongol Empire, small principalities began to form in the 13th century, including one around the small town of Moscow. Initially, the Principality of Moscow was tiny, with its territory barely extending beyond the city limits of Moscow. But starting in the 14th century, the Principality of Moscow began to establish itself as the leading power among the Russian principalities. This was largely due to the shrewd policies of its princes, who skillfully balanced alliances and conflicts with both the Mongols and other Russian principalities. One key figure in Moscow's development was Ivan Martel, Under his rule, Moscow gained even more power and wealth by receiving tax privileges from the Mongols and expanding its territory through astute marriage alliances and diplomacy. In 1321, Ivan managed to persuade the Metropolitan of the Russian Orthodox Church to move his seat to Moscow, further strengthening the city's religious and cultural significance. Thanks to its strategic location on the Moskva River, which flows into the Volga, Moscow also became a major economic center. Gradually, all rival principalities such as Vladimir, Tver, and Novgorod were conquered and incorporated. Ivan's successor, Simeon the Proud, was the first to declare himself Grand Prince. Moscow was now also the center of resistance against the Mongols. The princes skillfully exploited the weakness of the Mongol horde to free themselves from its dominance. Under Ivan the Great, many painful defeats were inflicted on the Mongol Empire, leading to its collapse. Nothing seemed able to stop him now. After the conquest of Constantinople by the Ottoman Empire and the fall of the Byzantine Empire, Ivan the Great declared Moscow the only remaining bastion of Orthodox Christianity and the Third Rome. From then on, the rulers called themselves Tsars, in reference to the Latin Caesar, meaning emperor. With that, the Grand Principality of Moscow became history. The Tsars now saw themselves as the successors of the Byzantine Empire and as the protectors of all Orthodox Christians. They abandoned the title of Grand Prince and called themselves Tsars of Russia. Ultimately, the territorial expansion of the Grand Principality of Moscow led to the formation of a unified Russian state. The most important step in this transformation was the political consolidation and centralization of power in Moscow, which remains the case today. The local princes and nobles were either integrated into the Moscow system or disempowered. Major reforms in administration, the military, and legislation laid the foundation for the modern Russian Empire. Finally, let's jump to the favorite vacation island of Germans, Mallorca. Before the island became a hub of mass tourism, it was a frequently contested territory, offering an excellent strategic position in the middle of the Mediterranean. Thus, it played an essential role in the Reconquista, as Christian rulers sought to push back Muslim control in Spain. In the year 1229, James Reprises of Aragon, also known as James the Conqueror, captured Mallorca, marking the end of Muslim rule on the island. He was a scion of the Kingdom of Aragon, one of the largest Spanish kingdoms, but he wanted to establish his own realm. As a result, neighboring territories, including the Balearic Islands of Menorca, Ibiza, and Formentera, fell under his control. Mainland territories, such as the regions on today's Spanish-French border and the French city of Montpellier, were also part of his domain. The Kingdom of Mallorca was born. His successors solidified control over these territories and built the kingdom into an important Mediterranean trading power. The rulers resided in Palma, where today you can still admire the mighty royal palace and cathedral. However, about 100 years after its founding, the kingdom faced increasing problems. The Kingdom of Aragon on the Spanish mainland sought to govern the Kingdom of Mallorca directly. In addition, it was repeatedly drawn into wars on the mainland, both in France and Spain. These wars and increasing piracy drained the coffers of the small kingdom, and a succession dispute arose. Aragon's moment had come. In 1341, Peter IV of Aragon launched an invasion. Within 3 years, he managed to conquer all the Balearic Islands, as well as the territories along the Spanish-French border. The last king of Mallorca was able to hold on to his possessions in France for a short time, but had to sell them to the King of France in 1349. However, he was killed shortly afterward, and the Kingdom of Mallorca was finally incorporated into the Crown of Aragon.